welcome to this episode of Money's Talks. This is a podcast by Money's Magazine and also powered by AMVS Capital. My name is Ana Maria Meshkurti. I'm your host on this podcast. And today we have the great honor to have Sandy Carter. We have been following her for some time and we're very, very excited to have her finally on the podcast. Thank you, Sandy, for being here. Sandy is the CEO at Unstoppable Domains and she holds so many roles from board member, founder, and she's like really everywhere, especially in the space of AI, Web3, blockchain, and we want to learn all about that. But it's better, of course, to hear it from Sandy herself, how her journey started instead of from us, because we are here to listen to you, of course. We want to know, Sandy, a little bit about your career, how you started, how you got into tech. You know, a lot of people somehow find tech in their careers later on. So we would love to learn more what you studied and then where did you go, how did you get here, and how is it, to be in this position today?
Okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. I'm just honored to be here with you, and especially from where you are today in Saudi Arabia. I've been to Saudi Arabia. It's such a fascinating area of the world for sure. So, as introduced, my name is Sandy Carter. I'm the COO of Unstoppable Domains, and I do have a bunch of other stuff I do. I'm on the board of Altair AI. I'm the founder of Unstoppable Women of Web3 and AI, and a couple other really cool things. So, I'll head into the first question if you'd like me to on how I got started into tech. So it's really fascinating. The very first time I got taken down a tour of tech or digital transformation, I was actually in college. I was studying to be a doctor. I had always wanted to be a doctor. And of course, that's what my parents really wanted me to be, was a doctor. And it turns out that lots of chemicals in hospitals and doctors' offices cause me to pass out. I'm allergic to them. And so could you imagine having me as your doctor? I walk into the room and boom, I'm out. I'm like passed out on the floor. Not a very good thing. The cool thing, though, is my advisor at Duke University was also part of the computer science department. So not only was he part of the medical school or biotech, but also part of the computer science department. And the cool thing is, he said, I've got some projects that you can work on that will really transform what's happening today. And one of those projects was to do drug testing using simulation, AI simulation, on a computer instead of on animals. And that, of course, touches many of my loves. I love animals. You heard I just had to kick my 2 dogs out because they were yipping too much. And then using, computer science and artificial intelligence to simulate that and make it possible to where you didn't have to test on animals in certain cases was just like a dream come true. And that transformed my life forever, because that's what set me on the path to focus on technology versus just medicine or another career. I thought it was pretty impactful early on in my career.
That's really impressive. Also, it's like such a funny thing, right? That this happened to you, and it's kind of really like you're not meant to be in that place, but you're meant to be in the technology space. So that's very impressive. And can you tell us a little bit about your the company Unstoppable Domains and your daily role? So everybody, when we see like C-level executives, we're always thinking like, what do they really do, right? Like, what does their daily look like? So the higher you grow, the more kind of questions people they don't see. It's not like you do the daily job as I get a task, I do the task. You are doing something different. So everybody is curious about this. So if you could tell us a little bit about the company and also what do you do in your daily?
Yeah, I think I have the best job because, first of all, I have a great team, and a great team is so important when you're an executive of any kind. And so let's start with Unstoppable Domains. Unstoppable Domains is a digital identity platform. So think about things that identify you today. It could be your birth certificate, your driver's license, activities that you love, communities that you belong to. We're working to digitize all of that. So now, that you have that in a digital form, it would be all on chain or all on blockchain so that you have that forever. For example, a friend of mine was born in Venezuela. Her mother passed away about a year ago. She was looking for her birth certificate, could not find the piece of paper, called down to Venezuela. The hospitals burned down. she was like, oh my gosh, Sandy, if I had that digital identity thingy that you do, I could have it with me at all times. I wouldn't be searching for it. And I think that's just one example of the power that this brings, right? A digital identity platform enables you to transact, it enables you to do email, but it also keeps a record of everything about you that's protected and private to you. You get to choose when to share it because you own it and you're the decider of that. So what does a typical day look like for me? So I have a really fun day. Let me just take today because I think it was very typical. I started today with customer meetings. I am customer obsessed, so I try to meet with customers as much as possible to understand both what's working, like they're already a customer, or potential customers to find out what else is it that they need from us to make their lives better. I had a meeting with some interesting folks from Pudgy Penguin, which I think is so funny because, in my Web2 days with Amazon or IBM, I'd never meet with Pudgy Penguins or, any, tetherballs or anything like that. And I do that all the time, as well as meet with some other really cool folks. And then I spent time with our whales. Our whales are our biggest customers of all. So we have every month we sit down with them and we find out what do they love, what do we need to do better, what's top of mind for them. And then I did stand-ups with my team. So my team comes in and we plan for the week, what's coming up, what is it that we need to get done. And I did a newspaper interview. I did a Twitter space, and now I'm on this amazing podcast. So that's kind of, a good mix of customers, partners, listening, telling, team events, and then of course external like podcast, Twitter space, that sort of thing. They're really cool.
Wow, that's very cool. Yes, definitely we want to work with you in your daily because this is a lot of fun and also very productive. I really like that you are really putting a lot of emphasis on your team. That's something really, really great. And also that you really care about your customers because that changes the game, I guess, and you get a lot of intel and then you can really cater to them. So that's very, very nice. Also, we want to learn a little bit more about the whole kind of decentralized, Web3 technology. We hear this all the time, right? And most of the time, people don't even know what decentralized means or my identity is on the blockchain or Web3 technologies are going to help me. Can you just give us like a dummy kind of course, mini course on that, just for people that never heard of this or heard of it but don't really know what it is, and just to bring it more closer to the regular folk?
Yeah, so it's quite interesting now, things kind of go full circle. We were talking Web3 and then it kind of changed to decentralized and then it changed to on-chain. And I really like on-chain the best because on-chain, I think, more accurately portrays what we're talking about. So we're talking about a transaction or data that occurs directly on the blockchain. And remember, the blockchain is a way to store data that is transparent, secure, and immutable. So instead of having an entity or a company store all your data, you're storing these in blocks of information so that no one entity, no one company has control of it at any time. It operates based on a set of rules that are encoded directly into the chain. So that makes it more transparent. Unless you specify, your transaction is visible, can be verified by anybody in the network. It's more secure because there's cryptography engaged in the blockchain, and it makes it more immutable, right? Once the transaction is recorded on the chain, it can't be altered and it can't be deleted. So you can adjust your comment, but you can't delete the very first time it was said or mentioned. Mm-hmm. So why is it so personal to me? Well, it's really very personal to me because as you put things on chain, you're actually looking at things that, how do I say this? Let me give you an example. Let me start over. If you think about LinkedIn, I can write or say anything on LinkedIn about myself. Mm-hmm. There's really nobody who verifies that data. Like if I put that I'm Santa Claus, no one goes, oh yeah, she's really Santa Claus, check mark. But when I put something on chain, when I have a digital identity that's on chain, because it's verified by a third party, it's trusted and verified. So just an example, if you look up LinkedIn, they'll tell you about a third of the people on LinkedIn who place a college on their LinkedIn profile maybe didn't really go to that college. Maybe they did a summer month camp there. Maybe they just went there for one class. Maybe they read the HBR review article. But there's nothing in there. Think about it. There's nothing in there that actually goes through and checks and certifies that you're okay. Mm-hmm. Now, contrast that to the blockchain. Why it's personal to me is that now I can actually see on chain what I do. So for example, I can see the communities that I'm active with, not just say, oh, I'm really active with sustainability, but I do nothing about sustainability. So it really shows my actions, which I think holds me a little bit more accountable. And in fact, the really cool thing was one reporter I was talking to, he made this, Anna Maria, he made this great statement. He said, I went and I saw my digital identity on chain, and then I looked at what I had written. And there was a gap between who I wrote I was and who I was. Wow. And so it really helped me figure out, oh, wow, I'm spending a lot of time here. I'm spending time here. And so maybe that's where I really want to focus, not on what I think I want to focus on, but it really shows me, the truth, for example. So I think that's a great way to think about it personally, is that on-chain enables you to see the reality because it is trusted and verified by others.
Wow, I love that. That's so cool. Because sometimes we all have done, I think, this branding exercises where, you send those emails to all your friends, coworkers, and then they come back with feedback or what they think that you are doing or what your messaging is. And you get very surprised because just like you said, you think you are actually portraying something, but you are totally maybe in the wrong sometimes.
Right. So, great example. Yeah, I like that. That's exactly it. Yeah.
I would love to have this as a service, I would love to instead of a branding exercise, go on the blockchain and get myself verified by everyone and saying that's actually very powerful also for recruitment and stuff like that, I would imagine.
You got it. In fact, I think a lot of recruiters, we're now working to get on chain people's diplomas, right? So working with universities like Arizona State University or Harvard or Duke to get your diploma online, because then you can prove it's trusted and verified. You can't get it. I can't send it to you. It's soul bound to me where I went to school or what I did. Or if I, maybe I did do that executive MBA at Harvard, but not a MBA at Harvard, then you can actually see the difference. Sometimes people leave that off in the nuances on their profile. Yeah.
I know someone that interviewed for a job and he would always put Oxford University, but actually it's one of those universities in Oxford, but it's not the Oxford University. So no one actually caught it until some guy that interviewed the person had been to the same university that he claimed. So he said, "You didn't go to Oxford because I went to the same one." So definitely, yeah, that's we always kind of assume, right, from our own viewpoint and lens. Sometimes we make our own biases and assumptions. So that's very interesting. And are there any risks associated to this? I'm sure a lot of people have this question oh, I'm going to put it out there and maybe some other people might verify me, but they don't really know. So how do you go about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's risks in everything that you're doing, right? I think that, one of the risks that you see is that a lot of people don't want a permanent record of what they're doing. So this definitely is a permanent record. And I would say, if you don't really understand it, crypto is one use case that's on chain, you can get rugged really quickly. So you do need a set of knowledge today anyway, to really use it and use it responsibly. Figuring out what you want to show and what you don't. So for instance, we work with a secret network. They're all about confidentiality and ensuring that, you don't share your blood pressure with everybody, but maybe you do want to share, the fact that you went to Duke University or Harvard or whatever. So, it's really making sure that you're using the right tools. We're still in the early stages of being on chain. And so I think, as this matures, we'll see more and more and more safeties for everybody versus, just those who are really technical to know and understand what's going on.
And now that you mentioned crypto, also this is something that I think a lot of people mistake, myself included. You know, you hear crypto, blockchain, Web3, you think everything is together. So, and then some people say, oh, crypto, this was like back in the day cool, not anymore. Then people think it's Bitcoin, the blockchain is the Bitcoin, right? So all of this. What's your take on the crypto just in general? And how can people like really understand that this is two different things? Like you're not doing crypto if you're on the chain or anything like that.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to do it is if you look at the blockchain. Blockchain is a technology, and there are use cases that sit on top of it. For example, today I met with a company called Petastic, and what they're doing is they're putting dog and cat identities on chain. So that's an application, right? So just like we talked about digital identity for humans, they're doing it for dogs and cats. There's also property. People are building deeds and titles on chain. So that way that when you go and you buy a piece of property that's recorded on chain, it's there, it's transacted, and everybody can see, oh, I bought that piece of property. Crypto is a use case of blockchain. Crypto lives on the chain, and it's basically a way to exchange money, right? It's a money exchange. So there are all different types of use cases of being on chain. Crypto is just one of them. And so a lot of people get really upset because, you know, if you think about blockchain, banks use blockchain, hospitals use blockchain. I mean, it's great for supply chain. You know, there's tons of use cases like property management and clothing and food sustainability that live on chain, but that doesn't mean they're all crypto based. It just means that one use case is crypto based. And so I think that's a really important distinction to note, is that crypto is on blockchain, but all blockchain isn't crypto.
Wow, I love it. You're so good at explaining. I think we should do like a full on because these are such like things that we hear all the time, but this is how you put them, and with the examples, I think it's so clear and it's going to help a lot of people, because then I remember these examples and I can easily utilize them to explain. Sometimes, you know, experts in the field, because they are so much in the field, they will not take a step back and just talk to, you know, the others that are not really understanding. So that's amazing. Thank you so much for that. And can you tell us a bit more of the Unstoppable Women? I love the name, and in Web3 and AI, how you started it, what it is, and then how people can participate if it's something, right, that people can join in.
Yeah. So when I first came into the space, you know, I came from Amazon, which was cloud-based and AI, and then IBM, which was cloud and AI. And we had about 25% women in those fields, which I felt was too low, right? We needed more women. So I actually started Women in the Cloud and Women of AI to help bring more women in. And then I got here and I was like, oh my gosh, the numbers are so incredibly low. So the number of women in Web3 is about 9%, super low.
Wow.
Number of researchers in data and AI is about 11%, super low. And so, you know, for me, those numbers just, I mean, it's such a new and emerging technology with such power. I just felt blockchain and AI needed more women in the space. And so I started this group called Unstoppable Women of Web3 and AI. And what I really wanted to do is to focus it on educating women about the space. You know, part of the reason when I started talking to women, why aren't you going into the space? They're like, I don't really understand what AI is. I don't really understand blockchain. So how could I apply for a job because I don't know it? And so I started this group to try to get education out into the marketplace, so that people would know and understand what the technologies are. And that way, you know, there will be more women coming into the space. So what we do right now with Unstoppable Women of Web3, and it's Unstoppable Wow3, UnstoppableWow3.com. And you can go in there and you can take a class for free. You get a on-chain token when you take the class and you pass the test. We have networking set up so you can get to know other women in the space, so you can talk to them and form relationships and ask them the questions that you want. And then we also publish a list that's called the most inspirational women of Web3 and AI. And I do this because, there's a famous quote that says, if you can see it, you can be it. So if I
Yeah.
see that Anna Maria is doing that podcast, then I maybe can do that. Or if I see that Sandy's doing AI, maybe I can do that too. And so we publish this list every year. It's about 100 women overall that really just showcase what they're doing, so that other women can look and say, oh, wow, I can do that too, because they're doing it. We have about 55,000 women that have gone through our education, and we have about 210 companies that have supported us in that mission. And we've done 3 of our most inspirational women lists today.
Wow, that's amazing. I love it also because you are doing something about it, right? A lot of people talk about the challenges and this is missing, etc. But it's few people that actually take the action and do something. And just by starting a group, now it's grown. It's so big. I mean, that is huge, a huge number. I'm very, very shocked by it. So that's amazing. And maybe you can share 2 things with us. One, maybe like a difficult moment, or maybe difficulties, maybe as a woman in the space or not, that you have gone through. I'm sure a lot of people would relate, especially in the technology space in general, but also this space that you just mentioned with such low numbers. And also a moment of like that you're proud of. It can be, even connected to the women that you have trained, or anything like that, right? That we would love to hear that.
Okay. Well, I think one of the toughest things for me was when I was first starting my career. And I was working with a bank in Japan, and they had some issues with some of their code. And I was actually coding at that time. And my manager took me over with him to Tokyo so that we could help solve this customer's problem. I love that fact that he got us on a plane. We didn't just communicate via phone. We actually went to see the customer because they were a very important customer for us. So we show up there, Anna Marie, and we're in the room. And the guy, the CIO, asked questions. And I would say, because I was the expert in that area, I would say, oh, well, here's why that's happening. And it was like, I didn't even say anything. It was like I wasn't even in the room. So then my boss repeated the same thing that I said. And then he was like, oh, okay, now I get it. And so anyway, they kept going back and forth. And this happened like 5 or 6 times. I knew the answer. I would say the answer. People acted like there was nobody in the room. And then the guy would repeat the answer, and people would be like, oh, that's so brilliant. It's amazing. And so I love this moment because my boss called like a break. We went outside, and he goes, I think I'm getting sick. He goes, you know all the answers. I'm going to leave. I'm going to go back to my hotel room, and then you answer. So we went back in the room, and I said, oh, I'm so sorry. My manager got sick, but I'm here to help. I'm here to help you. Yeah. And I thought the guy was going to freaking pass out because now here's this young blonde-headed girl that's now going to tell him stuff. And anyway, it took a little while, but he eventually said, okay, he needed the problem solved. And so we spent the rest of the day. He actually listened to me, and we got the problem fixed. The reason that was just so disappointing is, like, I wouldn't treat anybody like that. Like, I wouldn't ignore anybody, whether they were black, brown, purple, men, women, I don't care. Like, everybody's a person, but I got treated that way. And it still today, it stays with me. It was very hurtful and impactful to me in making, the changes that I want to make. The good thing was I had a great male ally. My manager didn't just sit there and say, okay, he's not going to talk to you. You tell me, I'll tell him. He'll tell me, I'll tell you. He was like, no, I'm not going to put up with this. You do it. I loved it because he had 4 daughters, and he was like, my daughters are not going to go through this. So I thought that was like probably my lowest point for a while. Was I just felt so impacted that he just ignored me when I had all the answers. Probably one of the, yeah, it was, right? Yeah. I mean, it is crazy. I was telling that story to a group of college students at Clemson University in South Carolina. And unfortunately, one of the women came up to me later and she said, I had that happen to me as an intern. And I was like, no, like today, like in 2024. But I know things like that still do exist. I would say one of my favorite times was I got to help Amazon create a new area of the business We had been working on really supporting small companies and startups. And I got to help them bring the power of the AWS cloud and AI and IoT, everything they did on the cloud, to the enterprise. So I actually got to introduce that in. I got to, start fresh with a kind of a new team and really grew that business up. It was pretty amazing. And I was really proud of that time because we really started with no people. And then we had people kind of join us and we really built that business up. So that was probably one of my best times in my career, was that growth opportunity for where we wanted to be.
That's very cool. I mean, I can speak to you for hours because you have so many different experiences, and I love how authentic everything you say is and how real. And now I understand also how much that you put so much importance to the team, because you have seen a lot of things yourself, and so you want to kind of give back and change those things that perhaps didn't work, or challenges that you've seen. So that's really great. So to close it off, one message to everyone, especially leaders like yourself in the space. Sometimes I think, as they say, it's cold at the top. So sometimes, you just surround yourself with people, and you don't really see anymore the real needs of the business and so on, if you are a little bit far. So we'd love a message that you have for everyone, especially people also in the AI space. It's such a space where for some of the leaders it's scary, right? Some of them are a little bit like skeptical, and others are embracing it. So someone like you, who has done so much and seen so much, would love to close it with a message.
Yeah, so I think my message to people is to, sit in the front row. And that's kind of, like one of my messages always, like, if there's no seat at the table, bring a seat to the table. If you're not in the front row, get in the front row. One of my mentors, I went to this conference and I went up to the very front row to sit, because I know when I'm speaking, I like to have people in the front row that I can talk to. So I went in the front row and I sat there. A couple of my friends came and sat beside me. And, as I was sitting there, I decided, I'm going to tweet this out, right? I'm going to, make sure it's on Facebook and social media. So I started tweeting away and posting on socials. And the two guys beside me, they're like, he's going to be mad at you because it looks like you're doing mail. We know you're doing socials. But so both of them, right after the presentation was done, they took off flying. And I was getting ready to get up and leave. And then the speaker jumps down from the stage and comes running up to me. And I was like, oh, shoot, I'm in trouble. And he said, thank you for sitting in the front row. And he goes, I have up on my screen as I'm speaking, I have this thing that monitors all the social media. So he goes, I really appreciate you posting about me. And because I sat in the front row, he is, the author of the best-selling business book of all time. It's called The Little Red Book of Sales, best-selling business book of all time. And because I sat in the first row and because I was tweeting about him and posting on social about him, he wrote the intro to my book, which went viral, made my book a bestseller. So I always say, take a risk, sit in the front row, make sure that you're bold. Some people won't like it, but I think the ones who matter will value it.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Sandy. Thanks for being with us. It's been such a pleasure really to have you. And thanks to everyone for joining us. And we'll see you at the next one. But thank you, Sandy. Those are amazing. I learned so much, really. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.